Hi, I'm Kinkas. I'm a bass player, and today we're gonna check out a wonderful reverb unit by Erica Synths, 112 dB, which is a software company. Most bass players would say they don't need a reverb. Why do I need a reverb as a bass player? It's just gonna make my sound muddy. All I need is my cable and an amplifier, and that's true for a lot of situations, for most situations, for traditional bass players. However, some bass players like to experiment and maybe play solo and improvise and play ambient stuff and explore the instrument in different ways. And that's where I think something like this can be really wonderful and inspiring. You can consider it a plug-in in a box. It's completely digital. It does have some analog VCAs in there, but pretty much most of it is digital. It is a reverb after all. If it's not spring or plate or a room, right, it's got to be digital. However, it has a plethora of hands-on tactile controls for many parameters that normally, even on the plugin, you don't really get. So it invites interaction, it invites playfulness, tactility, experimentation. It's made to be tweaked. That makes it really interesting and wonderful and different than most reverbs that you would find for guitars or basses or keyboards or whatnot. It's not a pedal. It doesn't have any foot switches. You can connect a foot switch to it, and you can control the bypass that way, or the freeze. And there's a few other things you can do. There's MIDI as well, so you can actually map a MIDI controller to control all of the parameters. You can even record the knob movements with the MIDI output. Why don't we just first start by playing with it, listening to how it sounds with my bass, showing the different parameters, what they do, what they sound like, and so on. So let's get started. This is my Ibanez EHB 1505. It's a short scale headless 5-string, and I string it with a high C rather than a low B, because I like the extended range for soloing and playing chords and things like that. So it's already you can hear this wonderful, absolutely noiseless, pristine and creamy sounding reverb. This is the first preset. It's called Infinite Void. And we're pretty much going to stick to this preset and then tweak it. You can save a whole bunch of presets. There are a few that come with it. But my idea today is really to explore and experiment with the controls, with the hands-on controls of the unit. We're going to get to using it with a fretless bass. I have my Infinity Ghost here waiting. And we're also going to use a MIDI controller at some point because you can use a MIDI keyboard to control the size of the room, which is a really interesting, quirky, unique feature of this reverb. And so you can actually play like melodies with it. If you freeze the buffer, you can sequence melodies with it. So it becomes like a kind of synthesizer too. So okay, so yeah, I'm talking too much. Hold on, let me just play a little bit, okay? So let's go. Alright, so already I feel like it's a little too washy. So I have filters here. I have bass and treble filters. So I can cut some of that treble. And also I have damping controls. So damping is over time you start losing some of that particular frequency, the low or the high, right? So if I leave the high damping on 0 and I put my feedback really high, you hear that endless high end, just goes on forever. I do have some low damping going on, so the lows are, disappearing. So here, why don't we dampen some of those highs too, right? Start to make this a little bit more useful and natural. Of course, I have the dry wet control as well. So I can make it a little bit drier so you can hear a little bit more of the bass. Right? Now here's the stereo control. You can make it mono if you turn it all the way to 0. I do recommend you listen to this with headphones or studio speakers. It sounds really good in mono if you're in a venue or setting where stereo is unavailable. And you can make it more and more stereo. And you come to 100% in the middle position. This is just the normal stereo. Right? Now we can use some spin. Spin adds turbulence. It's modulation. Adds turbulence to that reverb, right? Now when I move the size, you're gonna hear, reverb is really just a whole bunch of delays. And just like delays, when you change the time, you change the pitch. And here the time is the size. So check this out. Let's put the feedback all the way up. Now the feedback is affected by the size and the damping, right? So if I have a lot of high damping, a lot of low damping, and a small size, even with the feedback at 100%, you get a sort of shortish, because now we have a small room. It's not going to give you a small and highly dampened room, right? Let's turn the damping back down. But we're still using kind of a small room. Ooh, that's so nice. There's a pre-delay, right? So you can go all the way to 200 milliseconds. It gives you that little echo there, initial, and that can help clean up your sound as well, because then the initial note as you play it is clean. And then the reverb comes in right after that, so it doesn't muddy up your initial note. So nice. Right? Now here, the shape, this affects the ratio between the early reflections and the late reflections. So there's two components to this reverb. One is the early reflections, which is the close reflections of the room, and then the late reflections are farther away. And you can mix them with the early late knob here, so you can have only the late ones. Which obviously have a longer feedback, a longer size, well, bigger size. Let's make the size even bigger now. Now listen to those late reflections. Nearly endless, right? And we don't even have 100% feedback going on. all the way to early, these are just the early reflections. So it's like a small bathroom or something. And you can change that ratio. Have maybe less pre-delay as well. Turn the spin up, and now we're gonna put the early late mix in 50%. And you can freeze. So now I've frozen that sound, right? And I can play around with the size. Check this out. It's like messing with the reel of a tape, right? Now let's make this huge size now. We're gonna make it a little bit late heavy, a little more pre-delay, and we're gonna release the freeze. A little more wet, tiny bit, a little more stereo. You can go up to 200% stereo, so it becomes spatial. Isn't that so cool? A little more high damp. We use this treble, perform it, you know. You can perform with these knobs too. I have a looper here. I can make a little loop. go of the bass and just play with the knobs. Super cool, right? Now check this out. Let's freeze something. Let's get something nice going here. I'm gonna freeze that note there. Now I'm gonna take my little MIDI controller here. I have this Arturia Keystep Pro. I'm going to turn it on. It should turn on track 1, which is MIDI channel 1. And check this out. So now I'm using my bass reverb as a synthesizer voice, and I can sequence it too, right? I can put it down, unfreeze, grab my bass again. Start getting into crazier things, right? That's pretty cool, right? I'm going to turn off the controller now. A couple of things that I want to show you from the menu. There's a data wheel here, which is a push button, and there's the back button here. The back button gets you into a menu. So right in patch, if I push in the encoder, I can save a patch, I can sort patches, in other words, put them in order so that you can use a foot switch later to progress as your set progresses. You know, you can program your patches according to your set list. And there's magic. Magic is a randomization of the presets. So if I push in now, I get a completely new set of parameters. And by the way, you might notice that it didn't change immediately. It morphed into the new one, right? Here we go, we just magicked another patch. You can set magic to your foot switch as well. So you can just like tap on that foot switch to your heart's content and get completely different sounds each time. Listen to that. Right? So cool. Now I can go back and I'll show you over here in effect. It says dirty off. That's because there are two algorithms. One, which we've been using, is a tape emulation. The other one is bucket brigade, which is very dirty. So we can turn that to on, and now we get this almost bit crushy kind of a sound. We turn the treble down a bit. Very cool. We'll turn it back off now. So as cool as it is, I do like the nice clean one. Now analog mix on means the dry wet is running on analog VCAs, voltage controlled amplifiers. You can make it digital so that can be controlled by the preset. But we'll leave it. And morph, right now I have morph in 3, so that means 3 seconds it takes to change to a new preset. And of course you can change that to up to 10 seconds. It's quite a wide morph. Or you can turn it off completely so it changes immediately. Right? I like the, let's leave it at 2 seconds. Right? So now I go back. There's also MIDI parameters, there's the foot switch assignment, and there's the system settings, which is mostly like display and things like that. But we'll go back to patch now, and back to Infinite Void. Now we have that 2-second morph, right? So I can change to a different patch, and when I hit the encoder, it does that smooth glide into the new one. Well, this is a nice one. It comes with quite a few really nice presets, though I'm personally not too much of a preset guy when it comes to this pedal. I really like tweaking until I find the sound I want. Now, we're gonna mute this for a second and grab the fretless. This is the apple of my eye. I love both these basses. I have 16 basses, so I have quite a few that I love a lot. But these two, right now, they're probably the favorites. It's an endless fingerboard, see? So no apparent pickups, only the piezo's under the bridge. So I can go very high and very low because I have a low B on this one. Back to our nice Infinite Void. Let's dial it in a little bit. Reel in that feedback. Let's put it how we had kind of found the sound here. we're too wet right now. Let's dial it down a little bit. I could do this all night. This is so fun. Alright, so I think I've covered everything, right? Most of the things that I wanted to talk about anyway. So we'll stop here because otherwise I'll just go on forever and this is going to get boring. So thanks for watching. I hope you liked the Nightverb. I hope you liked my playing these beautiful instruments. If you like the channel, hit like, subscribe. I'll be making more content like this. Next one's going to be the Echo Locator, which is the delay version of this. Exactly same size, looks very similar, a little bit different graphics, and it's a delay instead of a reverb. So that's going to be coming up soon. So make sure you hit that notification bell if you want to know about that when that comes up. See you soon. Stay musical, stay bassy. Goodbye.